We are less than a week away from the Game Week 1 deadline, and I am reviewing your FPL drafts that you have sent through to me. I have picked the 4 most popular ones, all very different to one another. This guy is absolutely ridiculous, putting the captaincy on solid march, as it will definitely help you out when you are creating your own FPL draft. So make sure you do drop a like on this video. Make sure you smash that subscribe button. We're aiming for 7k before that Game Week 1 deadline. And without further ado, let's get into this first draft. First up, we are kicking off with a very popular draft that I've seen in the community still to this day, and that is the Trent Salah Haaland draft. We simply can't look past these 3 options. They're all brilliant in their own right, but squeezing them all into one draft has been a task that I just really can't get behind, and I'm going to explain exactly why. Now, this has been sent through from David here, and as I mentioned, he's got all of the top picks, and that is one positive of going down a route like this. You have Trent at the top price, Salah and Haaland. And the great thing about this is because they're the most expensive option in each of their positions, you have the luxury to come down to any other option in the game if that pick didn't prove to be good value. That is a real benefit, especially with Mo Salah being so much more expensive than the second highest price midfielder. You can come down, whereas other managers are going to have no chance of going up to Mo Salah without making massive sacrifices and surgery to the FPL teams. And the also great benefit of going for someone like a Mo Salah or a Trent is in Game Week 2, you have that brilliant home fixture against Bournemouth where you can put the captaincy on one of those 2 Liverpool assets. For a lot of FPL managers right now, they are going without Liverpool. So that alone is a massive differential for the team, as a lot of others will go most likely for Haaland in Game Week 2 away against Newcastle, which isn't necessarily the best fixture for a captaincy pick. But again, as I discussed, when you are going for all 3 of these premium assets, you are having to make massive sacrifices to your FPL draft. And I think this team has particularly made that. Now, the defense I like. The Shaw-Gabriel-Trent combination is fantastic. I don't think you need to make any changes there. And I do expect Steele to start in goal for Brighton. So you have the Brighton coverage while others might be going for a Stupinan. But I think it's the midfield where the sacrifices really do need to be made. Caicedo, first and foremost, isn't an FPL option. That one needs to be gone. Either go to an Enciso at Brighton, who is actually going to get not necessarily guaranteed game time, but potential of a high ceiling. Caicedo as a DM just isn't an FPL choice. And I like the 2 6.5s in Eze and Mbeumo. Of course, one of those could either be Aston Villa's Diaby or Brighton's Matoma. So you have a nice little rotation there that you could go down. But the big one here is the lack of Arsenal midfield. I really do think with the opening fixtures, at least one Arsenal midfielder is essential for our teams, whether it be Saka, Odegaard or Martinelli. Their ownerships are going to be massive in the context of the game. And if you go against it and Arsenal do go big in the opening game weeks, I think that's going to really negatively affect the overall rank. The other problem here is the game time risk for certain players. Ferguson in particular, I think he's going to be a fantastic option this season. But is he going to be a fantastic option in the opening game weeks with Danny Welbeck having a brilliant preseason and João Pedro also looking really lively? That is my one worry here. And going for this combination with a bench that I would argue is a little bit weak isn't necessarily going to be the optimal route for in them opening game weeks. So to conclude on this draft, I really like it. You've done well to balance the squad, but I think you're missing some key components, in particular that Arsenal attack, to make it a draft that I would be really happy with. I would sacrifice Mo Salah personally and spread the cost elsewhere, as I think that midfield can be a lot stronger in those opening game weeks. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Next up, we have got a really interesting draft, and one that I haven't seen picked by as many managers. So I'm really excited to talk about this one. And it is going to be the Darwin Núñez plus Nicholas Jackson draft. So we're going to come on to those players in a minute. But looking at the overall team right now, we have a 4 million goalkeeper in Areola, which I'm going to come on to because I think that's a little bit of a negative. A back 3 of Trent, Gabriel and Lamptey. Again, Lamptey is a bit of a risk in the team, it is worth noting. Mbeumo, Eze, Saka and Kevin De Bruyne, who again is very lowly owned for a player of his price point. And Nicholas Jackson, Darwin and Haaland. So what do I like about this? First and foremost, that power front line of Jackson, Darwin and Haaland cannot be sniffed at. I think that is a brilliant front 3. The reason being is you have the coverage of Haaland throughout the course of the season. He's your captain week in, week out. There's no arguments regarding Haaland. Darwin Núñez gives you that game week 2 ownership, which I think a lot of people want to have at home against Bournemouth. The big caveat about Darwin is Is he actually going to start in game week 2 with Gakpo and Diogo Jota waiting in the wings? That is the big question mark, because if you get him started against Chelsea in game week 1 and he doesn't play in game week 2 or gets minimal minutes off the bench, you then start to question what is the real value of Darwin Núñez. And if that's going to be a common theme of him getting 60 minutes and then bench the next week and then 60, I don't know if I want to pay 7.5 million for an asset like Darwin. But if he does start, no denying that he's a fantastic option. And Nicholas Jackson, in particular with the current knee injury to Nkunku, I think his minutes are absolutely locked in for the opening game weeks with no other real 9 available to Chelsea. And I think he could be one of those players that if you go early on him, you'll get ahead of the curve. And when he does hit the ground running, which some of us are expecting to, it's worth noting I am a Chelsea fan, you could get ahead of the curve and that price will start to increase and others may get priced out of him. So I like the early investment in him. And I also like the differential City double up. I haven't seen anybody go for the KDB Haaland double up. And I think the main reason being why is we really can't predict those Kevin De Bruyne minutes. His game time in pre-season has been all but nothing. And I would be worried that he wasn't going to start the season and maybe Pep's going to slowly introduce him back in after that injury that he did sustain in the Champions League final. So I would be very cautious about Kevin De Bruyne. And personally, I think it's a lot of money to invest in a player that might not even start in game week 1. I would rather go across to a Man United forward, apologies, a midfielder, in Rashford or Bruno Fernandes. Get yourself some Man United coverage, as I think that is quite essential. Look at the ownership of the game. And Eze and Mbeumo, I have no complaints about. But again, if you want to get some Brighton coverage, I do like Matoma or even Diaby at Aston Villa as some 6.5 million alternatives. Now, of course, what are the big problems here? Well, first and foremost, Lamptey is not going to get any game time for Brighton, but I like the fact that you could just simply bring in a Stupinan for Lamptey. For me, Lamptey just becomes either a Levi Colwill at Chelsea at 4.5 million, or you go for someone like a Baldock or a Sheffield United, somewhere down that route, or a Matty Cash at Aston Villa. Goalkeeper, you cannot be going into the season with Areola as your number 1 goalkeeper. We need to invest 0.5 million more. Bring that even to someone like a Steele of Brighton if you are going to rotate your defenders, or even go to someone like a Johnston at Crystal Palace. All good options, but I wouldn't be starting the season as Areola. I would have him as my backup goalkeeper. And the bench is a little bit weak for me, especially if we are expecting someone like a Lamptey to come into the bench and rotate it. So spreading the funds a little bit, downgrading De Bruyne to a cheaper option, get them funds elsewhere, improve the goalkeeper. I think this squad then looks good. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I just need to interrupt this video for 2 seconds just to let you know what is going on over on Patreon. If you sign up before the game week 1 deadline, which is Friday, 6 p.m, you will get 30 days completely free. You have to sign up for $2.99, but I will refund you that if you sign up before that game week 1 deadline. It's an opportunity for me to rate your drafts. I don't have the time, unfortunately, to review all the ones that have been sent through to me. And the beauty of it is you get 30 days. You get game weeks 1, game weeks 2, game weeks 3, all for free, where I get to answer any of your questions directly over that period, and then you will be charged beyond that point. Check it out. More info in the description. Back to the video. The third draft has been sent in from Seth, and I'm going to call this a solid March because this guy is absolutely ridiculous putting the captaincy on solid March. I need to find out whether that was a typo or he is actually going for a solid March captaincy, because if he is, I need to monitor this one, as it could be either genius or incredibly stupid. I cannot wait to see how that one pans out. But this draft here is, I'm going to say, a lot more balanced than what we've seen in previous drafts. So Onana in goal, we've discussed, is a fantastic pick. What I do like in this team is they have the coverage and defense of Shaw, Gabriel, and Dunk. And what I like about Dunk is because of Stupinan's ownership is 50%. Dunk, who we think is going to get decent game time, but it is worth noting his preseason minutes have been very limited. I'm not sure whether De Zerbi is just kind of giving him a bit more time off or he's carried an injury, but I would monitor Dunk going into game week 1. He could be a little bit of a risk if he is carrying a knock. But what I do like, and I've mentioned it in the notes here, is you got a lot of differentials of players that are highly owned. So, for example, you have Dunk instead of a Stupinan. So, if Dunk was to get an attacking return and they still maintain those clean sheets, that could be that slight difference between going a decent rank to a phenomenal rank. And the same is going to apply to Solly March. Everybody is going for Matoma, but when we look at the underlying numbers of last season, Solly March was right on par with Matoma. And I don't think the ownership of Matoma at 30% and March at about 5% is justified. I think anybody going for March is completely fine with that. I think naturally Matoma, looking at the ownership in the game, you feel like I have to go there in case I miss out on those potential returns. I also like the pick of Udogie at Spurs, a real nice differential there. Not really any other Spurs assets are being bought, maybe Pedro Porro, so he is a fantastic differential as well. But I would say Spurs from a clean sheet perspective aren't necessarily looking the best in those opening game weeks. What I also like about this squad is the flexibility that it offers. Looking at that bench, Nicholas Jackson, Udogie and Mings, this can get rotated in any direction. We can go for a 3-4-3 if we want to at any week. It could even go to a back five in certain game weeks if that was required. And I think flexibility in this squad is fantastic. Now, what are the problems with this? On the flip side of what I discussed, you are going to have benching headache each and every week, especially looking at game week 1. Benching someone like a Nicholas Jackson, benching someone like a Udogie who could offer those attack and returns. And that's only going to continue as the weeks go by. So, of course, when you are spending a lot of money in the general squad, you are always going to have benching headaches. My thing to you would be, maybe we could downgrade a certain area of the team. But if you're happy to bench one premium asset each and every game week, then I do not mind the look of this team at all. The other thing I would say is slight rotation risks in this team. Darwin Núñez and Foden in particular are two that I would put under that umbrella. I think they are phenomenal FPL options. And because you have a strong bench, you can kind of counteract that potential risk of rotation if they were to play 0 minutes. But I do just think Darwin Núñez and Foden, high risk, high reward assets, but it looks like you're going down that route, especially if you're going for March captain, and I'm totally for it. So this is a draft that I'm actually really excited about monitoring going into game week 1. Last up, and there's a reason why I've saved this draft for the end, is Robbie's draft, which I've classed the Martinelli draft. But realistically, I think this is probably the most popular FPL draft structure that we've seen going into game week 1 by a lot of FPL managers. Now, the reason why I say that is because it ticks a lot of the boxes that managers are generally going for in the community. The double Arsenal attack, they've got the Brighton midfielder in Matoma, they've got the Haaland plus 7.5 million in Kunku, but again, that one is a slight injury risk that we do need to talk about. They've gone for the 4 powerful defenders in Stones, Gabriel, Estupiñán and Chilwell. This is something that has been very, very popular in the community over the last week or so and one to monitor. It will give you a headache in game week 1 if you did choose to bench Chilwell, but you have Chilwell ahead of the game going into game week 2 and beyond, where the fixtures are fantastic for Chelsea. So this is very much what I would class the popular, almost template team that we are getting towards. Now, the reason why I've named it the Martinelli draft is because, of course, the Gabriel Jesus injury has shifted a lot of FPL managers' teams. Previously, all of them were Haaland plus Gabriel Jesus. Now they've shifted to Nkunku and Haaland, or Nicholas Jackson or Darwin Núñez. But of course, because of the triple up in Arsenal being such a popular strategy for FPL managers, we've had to allocate that third Arsenal spot to somebody else. And this is where I think a lot of FPL managers will eventually come to, and that is Martinelli in a double Arsenal midfield. So the route that I'm personally going for, and I think it's a route that a lot of FPL managers will need to go to when they watch the Community Shield. I'm expecting Martinelli to be fantastic this season. Yes, his minutes could be slightly rotated, but his numbers last year were brilliant. And I think he is the optimal route to go for alongside a Bukayo Saka. I also like this team because it's really well balanced. I like Henry at 4.5 when you're going for the powerful 4, but that could always come down to a 4 million Kabor if you want to free up 0.5 million in your squad. Big problem with this is going to be a defender bench and headache. If you go down this route, I think Estupiñán will get sold in game week 4, but realistically, you're having to bench one of those defenders each and every game week. And because they all have fantastic games, it is going to cause headaches for you, and some managers don't want to go down that route. And the other obviously glaring issue here is the Nkunku injury. Now, realistically, with 7.5 million to spend on a forward, one natural route you could go for with minutes secured is Nicholas Jackson at Chelsea. Free up 0.5 million in the bank that you can invest later down the line if you want to. Or you do that Henry transfer down to Kabore, do the Nkunku to Nicholas Jackson, leave 1 million in the bank knowing that you could go up to any 8 million forward later down the line. I think that's a nice strategy, but monitor the one for Nkunku, because if he's past fit for game week 1, I think he is the best 7.5 million, and I would definitely have him above Darwin Núñez, as I think Nkunku's minutes are a lot easier to predict. But let me know your thoughts on this draft in the comment section. Yes, guys, okay, that is going to wrap up today's video. Thank you so much for sending through your drafts. I have received so many that I haven't been able to get to all of them. So what I am doing is I'm opening up my Patreon free for a month. Check it out, link is in the bio. If you sign up between now and the game week 1 deadline, you will get 30 days free. I will refund any transactions that get taken, and that is an opportunity for me to narrow down a little bit and make sure I prioritize those managers that want the FPL drafts reviewed, as well as having one-to-one chat throughout the entire period of August. So make sure you do check that out, link in the bio if you want to get involved in that on Patreon. And that just leaves to say thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you do join the league, check out my most recent video, and like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Take care. Cheers.